My slides here. So my name is Kevin Christensen. I graduated in 2009 with a degree in business finance and have been doing financial planning ever since. I started at the end of 2008 actually as an intern during the Great Recession, which was a very interesting time to get started. And now today it's starting to remind me of how it was 12 years ago. And I've been with a few different firms along the way and just started my own actually this year in April. So April 1st launched a company, April 11th had a baby during a pandemic and recession and all that. So it's been very interesting, but it's been good overall. And Anna, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody and hear everybody and be able to talk with you guys. I'm Anna Viettry. I graduated in 2017, became a financial advisor, and got my master's degree at the same time in integrative wellness. So my whole thing is making sure the wellness side and the financial piece comes together and just help people identify and resolve what gets in the way. So there's just a little bit of that that I do, and been just on the PLNU Alumni Association board with Kevin and Kimberly, and so it's been just such an honor to keep connected with Point Loma and just seeing how we can serve in our different roles.
Perfect. And you should have received an email with the worksheet for today. I think, if you print it now, just so you have it, it'll be easier to actually handwrite on it. It's not a fillable PDF. If you don't have it, if you didn't receive it, if you don't have a printer, that's fine. Just grab a paper and you can follow along. That will be in about 10 minutes from now, so you have plenty of time. Here's the lovely required disclosure that I'm sure you just enjoyed reading. So today's discussion is all about aligning your values. How do we align our money? How do we align our time? And we'll get into some other topics as well. If you have questions, feel free to send them my way. Here's my email if you want to take a screenshot or a picture of it. And we'll also, we may answer some throughout, but majority will be the last 15 minutes of the webinar. We'll answer any questions that people have. We didn't want to brush over the current environment. So aligning your money with your values is great, but people are experiencing a lot of difficulty right now with, COVID-19. Maybe they're affected physically or financially through, reduced hours or maybe a lost job. And of course we have, ongoing social injustice. And so, we didn't want to overlook those things and say, hey, everything's great. We're going to align our money with our values. Some of you on this call may have other needs or other questions, and maybe you're still just trying to lay the foundation of your finances. That's fine. Anna and I are available after this call for really anything financially related, but we decided for today's topic to talk about how we can align our money with our values. And I think even though we are in a global pandemic, we're in a recession, I think this is where it really does matter to make sure that it is aligned with your values. So we're going to do a few poll questions throughout the presentation today. The first one, just to get an assessment of when everyone graduated from Point Loma. I know Kimberly said from, I think it was 73 to 2019, but if you could just fill this out. You may not see it if you're on a phone, but if you're on a computer, just go ahead and type in when you graduated from Point Loma. We'll see the results here in just a moment. Looks like we've had 86% have voted, just a few others, and then we'll go ahead and close the poll. Okay. So here's the results. So 35%, about a third of the viewers within the last 10 years, 23% 11 to 20 years ago. I'm sure everyone can see these. I don't need to go through them, but We even have 20% didn't attend Point Loma, so somehow they heard about this presentation and wanted to still join, which is great. And then the next question, this is kind of a current assessment of where you are with the alignment. On a scale from 1 to 5, how aligned is your money with your values? 5 is very much aligned, 1 is not at all aligned, and then, could be somewhere in between as well. So go ahead and take a moment to fill out this question as well. Some pretty good results. It looks like a lot of 3s, 4s, 5s. We'll give you about another 5 seconds to fill it out. Okay. So 44% are right in the middle of the road. 44% also are a 4. And then we have some 5s and some 2s. So pretty good. You guys feel, fairly confident, but maybe there's a little room for improvement. So glad you joined us today because that's the topic we have for you. So Anna, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, we love to talk about what's important about money. It tends to be a taboo subject, even talking to your parents sometimes, to even friends. I'm sure you're not asking them how much money they make or what they're spending on, but you just kind of see what you get. But people are more comfortable even talking about religion, politics, and sex. And it's funny when you go into, even in the Bible, it contains over 2,000 verses on money and wealth, but roughly only 500 verses on prayer and faith. So there's so much that money is so multifaceted that we're not really uncovering this day to day or with experts or with kind of people that we can just converse about. We just kind of don't know where to go. We kind of look left and right. And so we're working a ton on people getting it more in the education system and whatnot, talking about it in churches, in social circles as well. Big thing here with just like kind of us talking about values, we just want to make sure that there is some things that we're motivated by, where a lot of people are motivated, like, I don't want to do this, like, I don't want to be in this position, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be in X, Y, and Z, you name it. And this is kind of us shifting into the positive values of like, okay, what's important to us? Like, where do we want to go? And focusing on that is kind of just the change of like, think about a pink elephant. Like, you don't do it until you see it. And so if you keep thinking about like what you don't want, you're going to keep seeing what you don't want. And you get far enough away where you're almost at this like comfort level. And you're not where you didn't want to be, but you aren't where you want to be at the same time. So just hope today is a little bit of an inch where we kind of flip you to going towards your goals, figuring out what you want, which is a tough thing for a lot of people to answer, but it's such a huge thing to do in terms of a positive mental shift and everything like that.
That's great. Thank you, Anna. So our next poll question is, what is most important to you about money? And we have several options here. I know that it could be multiple things, but if there's one that stands out, go ahead and select it now in the poll. We'll do another 10 seconds here before we wrap up this poll question. So as expected, money means something different for people. Providing for family was the highest at 45%. That's certainly a very important aspect of money, followed by independence, flexibility, and freedom. So this is great. All good reasons, and important things about money. So a few other questions. These are not poll questions. These are just open-ended questions to get you to think and to really decide what is most important to you in your life. So first question, and these all came from this guy, George Kinder, who has a whole program around life planning. So the question is, if you woke up one morning and had all the money you need for the rest of your life, what would you do with your life? So money's not an issue. You have more than enough. Is your life the same, or are there changes you would make? So we'll just go ahead and pause for a few moments and let you think about that question. And then we have two other questions as well. So the next question is, what if you learned that you only had 5 to 10 more years to live? What then would you do? So now you have a very specific time frame. You only have 5 to 10 more years to live. How would your life be different than it is today? And finally, what if you learned that you only had 24 hours to live because you had a rare disease? What did you not get to do, or what did you not get to be? So this is a very deep question for just starting out here, but it really gets down to the core of what is most important in our life. If you had 5 to 10 years to live, or certainly with 24 hours to live, you probably wouldn't be working. You would be spending your last moments with the people that you love. But just think about, what would you do if your time on this earth was limited, and even more so than it already is? How would you live your life, and what changes would you make? This should start to bring the values up to the surface on what's most important for us. So there's a good quote. I don't know who first said it, but it's, show me your calendar and bank account, and I'll show you what's really important in your life. And so that's kind of the foundation of today's talk is, how you spend your time and how you spend your money is, really shows what you care about and what you value in life. And so we have an exercise on this in just a moment. So this is how the average person spends their day. We all have 24 hours in a day. This is assuming that they have children, they're in their working career. So you can see a big portion is working, followed by sleep, and then the other, activities are accounted for, and before we know it, the day is gone. This is how the typical person spends their money. A big chunk is housing, followed by transportation, and on down the list. So, there's nothing wrong with this. This is, basically just how it is, especially living in Southern California and in expensive areas with housing costs. But this is how, the average person splits up their money. And we'll go through this a little bit more. The most important thing with your spending, and it's not just organizing your home, is, does it spark joy? So if you haven't seen, I think, is it Marie Kondo? She has this YouTube video that went viral about, getting rid of unnecessary things if it doesn't bring you joy. And so the same thing could be said about your budget and about your spending. If it doesn't bring you joy, then, it may not serve a purpose in your expenses. So next poll question, how often do you budget or track your spending? Is it daily, weekly, monthly, occasionally, rarely, or never? We'll do another 5 seconds here. Okay, so most people track monthly, 37%, followed by weekly at 30%, and occasionally at 19%. So most people are tracking their expenses or budgeting on a regular basis. which is great, the most common being monthly. Okay, so now we're gonna get into an exercise. So if you have it printed out, or if you have access to a printer, you can fire it off real quickly. If not, grab a scratch paper, grab a pen, and we're gonna go through this exercise together. It's gonna be about 15 minutes. So the first thing is identifying what is important to you. So we've given some examples, but go through and rank your values or rank what's important to you from top to bottom. So there's 9 examples here. You may have an other box. You may have 5 things that you want to include, but go ahead and rank them. So 1, 2, 3, all the way down the list. We'll give you about a minute to do that.
And doing it in a minute, it actually kind of brings it up pretty fast. As the more you think about it, it's kind of like, oh, this is what I'm consciously thinking the right answer to be. So just be honest.
Mm-hmm. We need some Jeopardy music here too. Okay, so once you have those ranked from 1 down to the end, now you're going to write down how much time you spend, how many hours per week on each of these values or on each of these categories. So, career is not only working hours, but also your commute time. Maybe it's even working at home on evenings or weekends. So total time for your career, and just write that down, the number of hours per week. I know things have changed a lot in the last few months. You may not be seeing friends and family, and maybe you're not even working right now. But try to go back. I know 3 months ago seems like years ago, but try to go back if you can to what the normal hours were for each of these things. Family could be time with, it could be your parents, your siblings, it could be a spouse, it could be kids, any time that is spent with family. And that's, pretty broad in terms of what you're doing, but, hopefully quality time, intentional time with family. The next one on this list is financial security. So that would be any time you spend budgeting, thinking about finances. It could be, meeting with a financial advisor if you have one. It could be, anything financial related. Maybe it's researching different investments. Anything for your future financially. And then friends, pretty self-explanatory, but any time you spend with friends, activities, anytime on an average weekly basis. How much time do you spend with God? It could be going to church, praying, reading the Bible, quiet time, any of those things. How much time do you spend on health? This could be physical health, it could be mental health, going to the gym, exercising, maybe it's even cooking healthy meals. Leisure, anything you're doing for fun. This is likely, with yourself, since there's, family and friends categories, but, maybe it's playing golf, maybe it's going to the beach, going to the movies, anytime you spend just having fun. Personal development could be reading, it could be listening to podcasts, maybe you meet with a life coach, anything you do to improve yourself. And then volunteering. Maybe you volunteer at the food bank or beach cleanup or Point Loma, any time that you spend on average volunteering. Okay, now grab your phone and add up all those numbers. So all the hours that you spend in all those activities, maybe you have some other boxes as well, but add up the total of all those combined per week. And once you have that total, we're going to subtract it from 112, which is the total waking hours per week, assuming you sleep 8 hours per day. So if your number is less than 112, there may be things that are not accounted for. You know, this doesn't account for, you know, time that you're on Facebook, or, you know, maybe things that aren't productive. And if you're over 112 hours, maybe you sleep less at night, or maybe you're, you know, overly ambitious with how much time you spend on all these areas. But take 112, subtract your total, and that's the total that's not accounted for. And so you just have to think, you know, how do you want to spend that time that is not accounted for? Or again, if there's a lot of hours at the end of the week, you know, maybe it's things that are not advancing you toward your values and goals. Now rank all those, take your highest number of hours all the way down to the lowest number of hours, and just rank them 1 through 9 or 1 through 10, however many you have. Give you a few moments to do that. Okay, is everyone pretty much caught up? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? I can see a couple people here on the line. Steve, looks like you're good. Okay, good. Okay, the next area is going to be spending. So all the same categories, but how do you spend your money in all these different areas? So again, going through the list, career could be, you know, maybe that's your commuting costs of your car. Maybe you have continuing education expenses. Maybe there's a dry cleaner if you have to, you know, get your clothes pressed. Any spending that goes into your career or your job. The next one's family. This could be gifts that you buy for family. It could be experiences or travel or activities, anything that you spend on family. I wouldn't put, you know, your rent or mortgage and groceries and things like that, but just things that help you with that quality time with family. For financial security, this could be money that you save per month. It could be insurance. You know, maybe you pay for life insurance or disability insurance to protect your future. It could even be paying down debt if that's a big goal you have. But anything you're doing to advance your financial security and your future. Friends could be different outings. It could be gifts, entertainment, you know, whatever you're doing with friends. How much are you spending on God? That would be your tithe. You know, how much money are you giving to your church if you attend a church? The next one is health. So how much are you spending on a gym membership or yoga, or maybe it's groceries because you want to, you know, do healthy eating. Any money that you spend, it could be physical health, mental health, maybe it's a counselor you meet with or a coach. Leisure could be entertainment, it could be travel, it could be your Netflix or other subscriptions. Personal development, that could be books or courses or podcasts, or maybe you have a life coach or a meditation app, any money that you're spending on improving yourself. And then the last one on this list is volunteering. So that would be any charity. So maybe you give money to Point Loma, maybe you give money to other charities outside of your church, plug in that number, and then tally it all up. So add up all the spending for all the different categories. This should not equal your total monthly expenses, most likely. It doesn't have to equal your total income, but you can take your monthly income, subtract this total, and see how much is left over. There likely will be, some large expenses like your rent or mortgage probably isn't included in this. So there should be money left over, but you can see how much of your money are you spending on advancing your values and toward your values. And then once again, you can rank these from 1 is the highest expense on down to the end of the list. So rank them from 1 down to 10. Give you a few moments to do that. And I can see Cindy and Steve. So when you guys are done, just give me the thumbs up and we'll move on. Give you guys another few moments here. Okay, so now that we've gone through this exercise, what does it all mean? Go back to the far left column and look at your number 1 value. Maybe that's family, maybe that's God, maybe it's financial security or career, but look at your number 1 value, go across that line and see how much time you devote to that value and what the rank is, how much money you spend on that value and what the rank is. And you have to ask, is your time and spending aligned with your personal values? Look at your second value and your third value and do the same. And just see if it's aligned. Just as an example, your number 1 value may be family, but you spend only a few hours a week with your family. Most of your time is spent on your career. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to change my habits and spend more time and money on my values? Or maybe my values aren't actually what I thought they were. Maybe in that example, maybe family's not my top value. Maybe it is my career. Certainly we have to work, we have to make money. So that's typically people's highest level of hours, but just take a look at this and see are they truly aligned, and if not, what steps can you make to make sure to devote the time and money to the things that you do care about. We will open it up at the end for questions, and so if you have specific questions around this, we're happy to answer. Anna and I are available after this call if you want to discuss your personal situation, or if you have additional questions that you want to ask offline, that's completely fine. We'll move on. We have a couple other topics here, and then we'll have Q&A in about 10 minutes at 12:45. So the next category, we talked about aligning your money with your values, and one way to do that is through spending, but you can also do it through your investments. So are your investments aligned with your values? So our next poll question is, how do you invest your money? How do you decide how to invest your money? Do you select them on your own? Do you let your advisor choose your investments? Or maybe you're not currently investing money right now. Okay, we'll do another 10 seconds here for the last few submissions. Okay, so most of you select investments on your own. That's 46%, followed by 39%. You let your advisor choose investments, and there's a handful of people who are not currently investing. So that's great. We're going to get into one more slide here on, or a couple more slides on investing. So this is what the United Nations came out with a few years ago. It's their sustainable development goals that they're hoping the whole world will join forces on. The goal is by the year 2030, so 10 years from now, they're hoping to achieve all of these things. Some of these are pretty lofty goals, no poverty, no hunger, but there's a lot of great things that will truly make the world a better place. And one way to help advance these initiatives is through our money and through our investments. It's actually possible to invest in a lot of these different areas that will help these things. Of course, it takes more than that. As individuals, we have to be responsible with our resources and with energy and waste and things like that. But just for today, we're talking about, how can we advance these different categories through our investments. So I think it's a final poll question. What areas are you interested in? So maybe this is how you're investing your money now. Maybe it's not, but what area stands out as some of the most important that you care about? Again, there could be several areas, but if there's one that stands out above the rest. A few more seconds here, and then we'll close the poll. Okay, so number one, as expected with Point Loma, spiritual growth and evangelism, 52%, followed by education, again, 44%, 41% are for human rights and social justice, certainly very timely with everything going on. And some others are sustainability, reducing waste, employee rights, environmental issues, and climate change, so all very important things. I guess nobody on this call cares to avoid tobacco and guns. But yeah, this is great. So the great thing about this is that you can use your money as a catalyst for social good. And so if our investments are in line with our values, we can actually make an impact on the environment. So thank you for filling those questions out. The last area is around giving. So we've talked about spending, we've talked about investments and time. Is your giving aligned with your values? And giving consists of treasure, talents, and time. So, oh, I lied. We have two more poll questions. How much time do you volunteer per month? Is it 0 to 5 hours, 5 to 10 hours, or 10 plus hours? And this could be anything. It could be a charity, it could be feeding the homeless, something at your church, something with Point Loma. Another few moments here for this question. Okay, so 68%, 0 to 5 hours. This could be, maybe volunteering is not one of your top values, which is fine. I mean, it's, this is on a weekly basis as well. So that, if you think about, I'm sorry, this is per month. So 68%, 0 to 5 hours, 20%, 5 to 10, and 12%, 10 plus hours. So that's great. And the next question is, how much of your income do you give to charity? This could be tithe, it could be just overall charities, but how much do you typically give on a monthly basis? They're still coming in. We'll do another 10 seconds. Okay, so 54% give 10%. That's amazing. Everybody who answered gives something. 1% is an improvement from 0%. So 10% certainly is the most common. 8% are giving 20% or more. The one thing I would say here is, no matter where you are on this chart, just give a little bit more. Just give 1 more percent. You won't even notice it in, your budget. If you're giving 10%, strive for 11. If you're giving 1%, try to give 2%. And you really won't even notice in terms of your budget. So we've talked about several ways to align your money with your values. Here's just a few action items, a few takeaways on how we can actually do that. So first, like we went through in the exercise, decide what's important to you. What are some of your top values? You want to make sure you have SMART goals, right? So they're specific, they're measurable, they're actionable, they're realistic, and they're timely. So be specific and realistic with those goals. It's tough to know sometimes how we spend our time and money unless we actually go through and track it. So if you're unsure or if you're trying to improve in those areas, I would actually track your time. Keep track roughly of how you spend your time in an average week, track how you spend your money in an average month, and then just go through and review those things and decide, is that how I want to be spending these limited resources? And if not, what improvements can I make? Be honest with where you are and be empowered to make the changes you want. If you didn't have a chance to complete the worksheet, go ahead and later this week or tonight, complete that worksheet. Or if you're married, share that with your spouse and have your spouse fill it out and see where you compare on values. In terms of the financial security, if that's something that's important to you, calculate your savings rate. How much money are you saving per month? The goal is about 15 to 20% for retirement. If you're not saving much there, it's tough to go from 0 to 15 or 20. So just over time, start increasing that. One of the best ways to do that is to automate your savings, where, paycheck comes, and whether it's through a 401k or another type of vehicle, you pay yourself first. So money is going into this account. You don't even see it. You're not tempted to spend it. The saying is to pay yourself first, and then what's left is what you have to spend on a monthly basis. You can do the same thing with your giving. You can automate your giving. You can put it on a credit card and pay it off. You can have it come out of your bank, but for causes that you care about, you can have all that automated. We looked at how to invest your money, different areas that you can invest in. So make sure those are in line with your values. And then, of course, give your time and money to worthy causes. So those are just some takeaways on how do we actually achieve this alignment. And there is one final question. So we had the question at the beginning of, how aligned do you think your money is with your values? Now, how confident are you in applying this information to ensure that your time and money are aligned with your values? So 1 would be not at all confident, 5 is very confident, or somewhere in between. Okay, so most are a 4. So they are confident, 59%, 23% are very confident, and then there's some people who are still in the middle of the road, but these are definitely higher than the beginning. So hopefully you found some value in today's conversation. We want to open it up for questions. So if you had emailed in a question, or if you have one now, please let us know, and Anna and I will be happy to answer those.
Amazing. Thank you, Kevin and Anna. I feel very empowered. And I like that we have that worksheet to continue working through. I like your idea, Kevin. I'm definitely going to bring that to my husband and have us go through that together. That was very valuable. Any questions, anyone? Again, we will be sharing this presentation. We'll upload it, and feel free and share it with your friends. We'll also provide you with Kevin and Anna's contact information. We'd love to stay in touch. Here's one question from Erin. It says, is there a certain percentage of your salary you should be saving?
Yeah, so it really comes down to what you're saving for and what your goals are. In terms of retirement, people typically recommend 10 to 20%. A lot of that is dictated on what you want your retirement to look like. Do you want to be traveling, and do you want to be, do you want a second home? Is it going to be a, lavish lifestyle? You'll need to save more. But also, how old are you now? If you're, if you graduated from Point Loma a year ago, you can probably save 10, 12% for your life and you'll be fine. But if you're 50 years old and you haven't saved much for retirement, it's going to take closer to 25 or 30% of your income. So it really depends on the situation, but that 10 to 20 or 15 to 20 is a good guideline. I would say, to really figure out how much you should be saving personally, you can always reach out to us, or you can just pull up a financial calculator online and just do a hypothetical of, if I'm saving this much and I'm, this age, what will that turn into when I'm age 65 or when I'm retired? That will give you a pretty good idea of how much to save. But that's just talking retirement. Maybe you want to buy a house, maybe you want to start a business. You could have other goals that you're saving for as well that could require different amounts.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to talk to an advisor just to kind of have a non-bias to hear kind of where you want to go. Everything is so different and personalized to each person. So it's fun when you can research all these articles online. You have so much access because of Google, but one article will tell you, yes, do this, and the second article will be, don't do this. So it's definitely good to kind of talk about kind of these values and kind of what your goals are, and it'll just tell you the timeline as well. So we're happy to help you.
We have some questions coming in about investments. Let's see, Keith says, how do you encourage people to choose investments in a way that reflects your values? Any ideas on how to get started?
Yeah, so I would say first is determining what your values are. It's a little bit different. The worksheet we went through was really on time and spending. So you can't really invest in friends and family and career and some of those things. But when you get into the other topics about investing, there's a few different things to do. One way to invest responsibly is through what's called ESG. So it's environmental, it's social, and it's governance. So you're only investing in companies that are really being responsible with their resources. They're treating their employees fairly. Typically they have fewer lawsuits because of, less risks that they have. But that's one way to do it. There's impact investing, there's social responsible investing, there's a lot of different terms, and they're all slightly different. But that's one way to do it. If you have a very specific value that you're trying to invest in, it could be a little bit tougher to find those. If it's climate change, or maybe you don't want to invest in guns or tobacco or something like that. That would be basically trying to screen out those companies that are investing in that or supporting it. But I would say if just as a blanket statement, finding these ESG investments, that those check a lot of the boxes on a lot of those different values. And I'm happy to chat specifics if you'd like as well, Keith.
Yeah, and it's good to just have the conversation with other people, encouraging them. It's not a lot of people know, are your investments reflecting your values? And I think it's cool to kind of even have that topic of discussion go on and people start thinking and have it a open and honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun question from John. He asked thoughts on investment apps such as Acorn. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they helpful? Any technology pieces?
Yeah. So, one of the best things about them is that it's automated, right? So you're either doing typically a set amount per month, or, I know some of them, I think it's maybe Stash that will round up your transactions. So you're, maybe only investing pennies at a time, but it's, every day you're putting more and more into the account. That's certainly a way to do it. That's one of the, if you think about, choosing investments on your own, that's one way. So the first would be you just open up a brokerage account and you go through and you just try to pick stocks that you want to invest in. Another way is, a lot of those apps and websites are called robo-advisors, where, maybe you fill out some questions and the computer will determine how to invest your money, how much risk to take on. It certainly is better than not investing. You're at least putting your money to work and allowing it to grow. But, I think Anna and I might be a little bit biased. You don't get the full experience that you would, working with a professional. So you may have questions on, how much do I save, or, what type of account should I open? Should it be just in my name? Should it be a Roth IRA? So there's a lot of questions around that, and just investing, through those apps is certainly better than not investing, but there's still a lot that's not discussed. And so it's not a bad way to get started, but a lot of people get to a point where, their finances get a lot more complex and they need somebody else involved rather than just, going through some of these websites. But the benefits are they're low cost. The investments are pretty good. They'll put together an allocation that is aligned with your goals, if it's retirement or if it's something shorter term. So that's a long-winded way of saying that, there's nothing bad about them, but I would say that's more for people who are just getting started.
Yeah, investments, it's not like a check mark the box there. There's a planning thing involved as well. And I definitely agree with Kevin. It's like, I have a ton of people who are still on Acorns, and it's not saying they're good or bad. It's kind of just what that direction looks like for you and getting used to that. So it's always good.
Yeah. And another way, besides for just having your specific investments aligned with your values, another way is thinking about, do I want to take the time to research stocks, to invest my own money, when that's something I can outsource to somebody else, and that frees up time for family, for my business, for traveling, for whatever it is. So that's another way to look at it in terms of your values is, is that how you want to spend your time, or do you want, someone else to help you do it?
Another question from Stacy. She asked, do you consider investment the same as savings, or should we invest a percentage and put a different percentage in a savings account?
Do you care to chime in, Anna, or do you want me to take it?
I'll chime in a little bit here, and you can take the rest if you have any comments on that. Investment is very general in what that means. You can invest your time, kind of like what we mentioned, money, and giving. So it's a little separate in terms of what you're pertaining to. Investing definitely in a savings account is part of investment. And then what other investment options are there for other areas. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question. And if you do invest, Kevin talked about earlier, 10% is a good kind of like principal marker guideline, depending on what your saving goal is, just paying yourself first.
Yeah, that's great. And just to add to it, I would say savings is kind of the baseline. I mean, you can kind of lump them together, but think of savings as literally just in a savings account where you're not getting much return. Maybe you're making 1% or less. That's still important. You need your emergency fund, so it's important to have the savings, and so that would typically be the first priority, is to build up your savings. Once you have several months of your expenses saved in an emergency fund, then you can look at actually investing money. So investing would be, it could be for retirement, it could be even maybe you're saving up, you want to buy a house in 5 or 10 years, so you're going to start investing some money. I would say you want at least a year or two or more, if you're going to be investing it, just because there is risks involved. But that's how I would kind of break those two up, is, saving is short-term emergency fund, something you'll need sooner. Investing would be longer term. You can invest in stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds. There's a lot of different investments out there, and it's typically a longer time frame, but it's important to have both.
This is a question from Jamie, and I believe that it relates to working with a financial advisor. She asks, when trying to save and manage money, investing time and money in a planner can feel like a big step. How do you recommend people find the right fit? And what is the financial investment in that relationship usually?
Yeah, so it can be, it's certainly an initial investment, and there's some time involved as well. One of my goals is to, give someone more time back than they would have had otherwise. So there's certain things that I can take off their plate. I can automate those because I'm doing it with other clients, and it's giving them more time for things that they care about more. So, there's a lot of different ways that, financial advisors can get compensated. Part of our industry has a bad name. If you go back to, the 80s and Wall Street, and, not doing the right thing for clients, and high commissions, and, all of that. And so the industry has changed quite a bit now. So Anna and I both focus, we don't work together, but we both focus on financial planning. So, some of the things we went through today, your values, your goals, and then, okay, now let's introduce investments to help you accomplish those goals. And so I personally, am almost all fee-based, which means I charge a fee for my advice and for planning and for the investments. I don't get paid a commission. But there's hourly arrangements. There's, you could pay someone just to create a financial plan and not manage the investments. You can have someone do everything. So it's tough. There's a lot of different arrangements depending on what your situation is and what you're looking for. But those are just, some ways that people can get paid. As far as, trying to find one, it's like, you could look online, you could ask friends, you could, just try to narrow it down that way. And there's a lot more than just us through Point Loma, who are in the industry as well. So, yeah, and let us know if there's resources you need or questions that you want to ask about, the specifics of that.
Yeah, I'd add in some people just ask around. It's cool that we have Point Loma connections through LinkedIn as well. So again, Kevin said, it's not just us as financial planners, advisors in the Point Loma realm. Give us a call, and then just kind of, I would just ask are they kind of asking you the right questions? Like, do they really are asking you like what's important to you, to like what are your goals and what are your needs, and being able to kind of repeat that back to you. Because the biggest thing is aligning both what you want and what the different tools and resources that we could find for you. Kevin works on feed-based because he has certain licenses, and it's great. I work on commission-based, and that kind of gets muddy sometimes, where people think like, are you just going to sell me a product? It's like, it's not necessarily my intention unless the shoe fits for you as well. So my consultations are free, and that's just by the structure of the company that I work with. I don't think one is better than the other. I do think Kevin does have certain licenses that like I would highly recommend you tapping into his expertise as well, and just kind of the protection for you. And that's kind of, I would stray away a little bit on the commission side, even talking on my end, unless you find like people like me or the people who can actually speak to you in that very casual way and professional way at the same time to really care about who you are.
Awesome. Great advice, Kevin and Anna. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up our questions. But if anyone else has more questions, we would still love to connect with you. Feel free to reach out to Kevin and Anna. There are their email addresses, along with you can always connect on LinkedIn. So yes, thank you again just so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time during your lunch hour. Again, my name is Kimberly. I work in the alumni office. We would love to connect with you as well. This video is being recorded and it will be up on our website shortly. So if you want to visit pointloma.edu/alumni, there is an event page where you can watch past webinars and then also tune in for our upcoming Loma talks. We have some excellent talks coming up this next week. We are being joined by Ashlyn Carter, who is a lifestyle vlogger. She's going to get us ready for the holiday weekend with some barbecue tips and floral arranging. And then the following week, we are being joined by Callie Stevens, who works for Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. She's going to be speaking to us about how COVID-19 is affecting communities worldwide. And then an additional talk that I'm very excited about, the alumni office is partnering with PLNU's Center for Justice and Reconciliation. And we're going to be conversing about finding our voices and becoming anti-racist and participating in the fight for racial equality. So good things coming up. We are very grateful for the alumni family for participating and being with us during this time. So thank you again, Kevin and Anna. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. And we look forward to staying connected. Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the day.